Hi, it's Mike, the Erudite DM, and we are recording this tonight. A fun video with our friend Paul Turner, who most of you know as Flint Fireforge of YouTube and other fame. And Paul was a great guy who got me kind of back into gaming a year or so ago, and we became fast friends. But the reason Paul is here tonight is he agreed to chat with me about a great new tool that I think most GMs, DMs, and even players need to know about. And he calls it the DM Diagnostic. Because I'm old, I do have the PDF, and I did buy it off of DriveThruRPG, but I actually have my little print copy here. I can't tell if that's going to be backwards or not when the video comes out. But anyway, it is called DM Diagnostic, and I'm going to turn it over to Paul to set the table of why you should know what this is and consider maybe using it.
Well, the first thing is, first of all, Mike, thank you for having me on. I appreciate being here and being a part of the show. I think what people need to understand too, I wrote this as a way to first and foremost judge myself. So this is not a judgment tool, although it's not a judgment tool we use for, you can use it to judge if you want. I made it for me so that I would get better at being a DM. Now I've DM for, over, 20 something years. And I have made horrible mistakes as DMs will do.
Yep.
And I'm always seeking to improve. I want to get better at what I'm doing. And as a professional DM from time to time, people are paying good money for a good experience. And I want to make sure I give them that good experience. And this diagnostic helps me first and foremost to improve myself. But I also think whether you're a player or that knows nothing, or but if you're a DM in a game, I think there is also a silent judgment going on that we're all thinking it. We're thinking, why is the DM looking in the rule book? Why is the DM, railroading? Why is the DM, we are silently judging the thing, and we're not going to say anything per se, right? If it's a one shot or if maybe it's a campaign, we're going to say it. But we're silently doing that. We're not doing it to be mean. We're just saying, look, maybe you've run a few games, you've been there, you've done it for a long time. You're going, oh, or if you go to a convention game, you're putting yourself, you're giving yourself permission to be a part of somebody else's table and how they run the game, and you're silently. A lot of people are just saying to themselves, "Well, I'd never do that." It's like, whoa, and so. I wrote this first and foremost for me to get better at what I want to do, and I've pinpointed, the things that I think are primary, the things that I think are important to me as a game master to get better at. So that's why I wrote it. I wrote it specifically for me to get better, and I would hope that every DM takes it and says, "Hey, this is how I'm gonna get better at what I do. I want DMs to get 1% better at that." And I think, I think we should, if we're going to, captivate 3 hours of somebody's time, whether they're paying for the game or not paying for the game, we should, be our best, be what we can do.
I thought it was such an impressive tool. And I'm not blowing smoke here. You told us about it. I think our Monday night group or something, you let us know about this tool. And then I started looking through it. And then I realized that, I'm confident enough with the group, but I know there's stuff I don't do well. And some of it's the basic stuff. Do I know the core rules well enough? Do I know the spells? I wrote an adventure, whether it was a one shot just for that weekly game or something I've published. Well, maybe I haven't read that in a year since I wrote it or something. Am I prepared enough? So I do think all of us are good at some things. Some of us are better storytellers. Some of us do great voices and narrative. Others really know the rules inside out, but none of us are good at every single thing. So if you open your mind and you put your ego over here in a box and say, look, let me just focus on what these folks think I did great and what I need to work on to get a lot better. I think that's where we should all be coming from, because it's a fun game. It's fun time. This isn't anybody's, job to go play DM. Maybe there are, I don't know, outside of Critical Role or something, but the rest of us, it's not our job. So we do want to have fun, and that a lot of that involves being a better DM or GM at the table.
Sure, and that's what players. I mean, if you have new players at the table that know nothing, let's say about the game, necessarily, even about role playing, that's the number one standard. Did we have fun? And absolutely, it's number one on the list. I want my players to have fun, and sometimes it means you change it up, you do those things. But I think in our heads, I can speak for me. I think in my head, I think I have a idea of what a perfect game is, even though it will not be perfect. I know that for me, if I'm executing on certain levels within the gameplay, that I know what the outcome should always be fun. Is it fun? But I'm always thinking to myself, okay, here's the things I know that for me, to if there's a thing, get the maximum amount of fun, or to get the desired outcome, that I'm thinking through these 15 skills that I'm looking at that I want to be better at, or not at some level, at least get a little bit better in each one if I can.
Yeah, and we all measure fun a different way, right? Different players are looking for different outcomes or different gratification out of the game, and that's just part of it. The instant I looked at this, the first thing that popped in my head was, I know what I mean. I know my weakness, but I think I'm a much better DM in real life at a table with players. And I bet a lot of DMs, when they look at this, GMs, when they look at this, are going to go there. Their mind's going to take them there versus a VTT, because I feel like it was hard enough being good, knowing the rules, knowing my material and my NPCs and my combat situations and where the traps are, and making all the right rolls and keeping your players. That's all difficult enough. But then you add on, oh, I got to remember how Foundry works or Roll20, and I have to be an expert at pulling up this thing and uploading those code and stuff. It's just a lot to handle in today's world.
Right. Well, what Critical Role did for the table DM is what VTTs did for online DMs. So Critical Role said, okay, it had set this crazy expectation of this is what role playing is at the table. And then you're watching maybe online games with lighting and torches and locked rooms and locked doors. Well, VTTs then became, whoever's running these epic online games then said, oh, this is what an online game should look like. And now we compare ourselves to that.
I can't do it.
And well, yeah, I mean, it's difficult. It's not, I mean, we all have skills, right? We can't, just like you couldn't do, just like you're not going to be great at voices, whether you're online or offline. You have only so much brain capacity, right? You only have so much to do. And if you're trying to focus on the game and you're trying to focus on the tech, that's difficult. That's a difficult thing sometimes.
It is a lot of juggling, for sure. All right. Well, I want to get into this because I promised you we wouldn't take too long tonight. And I do appreciate your time. And I know people will like hearing from you how this works. Let's go ahead, I guess, and jump right into it there and how we start doing the ratings. You do have on one of the early pages using this for player feedback. And you have some notes there comparing a home game to a con, or in your case, like a paid DM. So you kind of address it to each one of these audiences. Do you want to touch on base on that a little bit or not?
Sure. Yeah. I think you have to look at the factors, right? When you're judging your game, if you're going to judge your game, you judge it based on things like, is it at a con where you're dealing with people you don't know? And you're trying to, read the table with a bunch of people you don't really know, and you're trying to figure out, are they having fun or not? Because you don't know what is fun to them, versus if you're playing at your home table where your people, right? Kind of what buttons to push and levers to pull and those kind of things, and everybody's in on it. And I think you have to look at the some of the external factors, and two, are you playing online versus offline? Right. If you're going to fill this out, I would say it's not a fair 1-to-1 because of the technology factor. So, let's say you get off track, or, something's not working in your VTT and hurts your ability to, provide depth for your NPC, or because a token isn't there or doesn't work, or whatever it is, you're having to then measure yourself based on the context you're trying to do this in. So, and I say in this, the little document, I just say, look, be fair to yourself. Don't you're a good DM. Okay. You're probably a very good DM. And some people just want to, break out the whip and just, go after themselves that they're not doing a good job. And the reality is you're a good DM already. The diagnostic is there to help. The whole goal is improvement. It's not how to be the best DM ever guide. It's the diagnostic. It's to check and see which of these pieces or parts can I get 1% better at by simply offering, creating tools, or, whatever it is that you might need at the table. But, if you're going to do the diagnostic, do it and be fair to yourself. What was the context in which you were running the game? Paid game versus free game, right? There may be a little extra pressure on a paid game versus a free game. Eventually, though, if you're getting better, it may not matter. It may just be, where you say, look, doesn't matter if it's a free game or a paid game. This is the outcome. And once again, you're dealing with maybe strangers at your table versus your friends. So, and I do say you don't have to give it to your table. You can give it. I make the recommendation that you can offer to your players for some honest. And I find this to be that how many times do you see on Reddit or other places, they're complaining, some people are complaining about, that their table, they're trying to figure out what their table likes or doesn't like, or are they, misbehaving because I'm doing. And a lot of times this becomes a tool to get feedback from your table, right? It's if you want to, you don't have to. If you're not great at feedback, maybe you shouldn't hand it out, right? Just keep it to yourself. Get better by yourself. But if you feel comfortable, if you're running a campaign, right? And this is, in judging too, is it one shot versus campaign, right? If you're doing a one shot, go ahead and just judge yourself. If you're running a campaign for 3 months and you say, okay, we're running a 3-month arc. Well, if you want to give it to your players, then there's enough sample size there of games that you've played, hours you've played with these players, then go ahead and hand it to them and say, hey, I really would love your honest feedback, and it's a way to address things at the table, right? That may be getting under your skin as a DM, or may get under players' skins at the table. So you're looking at, various things and what people want. You're figuring out, well, what do my people want? What are they looking for? Well, if you look at the diagnostic after you hand it out to them, take it back and say, okay, and then take it with a grain of salt, right? It's not a complete judgment on your whole ability to DM a game. It's simply feedback and being able to say, okay, I can improve there. Oh, I can see where that happened. Oh, I can see, where I can see where they're coming from. And it offers an opportunity to have some dialogue with your group after the campaign, just like you would do like you do a session 0, maybe you do a session, whatever it is, 12, right? And say, hey, session 12 is all about the post game wrap up. And, if you want to know more than they just had fun, well, okay. If you want to know more, then say, hey guys, I would like you to be honest with me, especially if you're my friends. It's a little different to ask a table of con goers, let's say, to say, hey guys, we did a one shot.
They don't really know. Yeah. And they don't have the investment.
They don't know you. Their context is different too. I have a stranger running my game versus my regular DM. But if you have a bunch of, and by the way, you have different people at the table. You have other people who have DM'd a dozen, 20, 10 years, whatever. And then you got people at your table at a con who have never DM'd a game in their life.
Yeah.
Right. So be fair. You don't have to give it out. Best to give it out probably with people who appreciate what you do, and probably after a campaign versus a one shot.
Well, I know some of this had to just happen organically for you, and the need for this tool, because you are a pro GM and you do this and have done it for years. But I remember last year when I was watching you guys with the Monday night group with Joe the lawyer and Tim Shorts and Vance and Ken, and you guys were doing the game every Monday night in Shadow Dark. This just kind of happened naturally. You guys would talk about it for another 20 minutes after you quit playing, and then at the end of the whole thing, when you guys finished up the campaign, I remember that night it kind of happened too. You guys talked about what you liked and you didn't like, not just about Shadow Dark. And it certainly wasn't all about, Tim Shorts was the GM, and the focus wasn't all on him.
Right.
But I thought it was really interesting, and I like that idea. And I know sometimes if you're playing with your friends, or certainly if you're playing through Discord and Roll20 or something with strangers, you don't really know. Again, they don't have that investment like a con game. But if you're playing with your friends, sometimes even they're in a rush. But I think they will care enough because it's in their best interest to make sure you get better, so they do have a better time playing the game, and you avoid misunderstandings, and they feel like they have some power in the group. And I hate to overuse the word agency, but they do make a difference in their feedback and what they have for you.
Right. And I think it's a great way to empower your players. Yeah. Right. You look, if you have a hard time, maybe having hard discussions, or it's hard for you to do that. Well, listen, it's only 15 skills, and it's a 1 through 6 system. You just do the numbers, and then boom, they're done. And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, and your players, it's a great way to empower your players and to show them you're looking to get better. I mean, it empowers them, but it also lets them know, hey, I'm open to change. I want to get better as a DM. And I think you guys are the best ones to talk to me about it, because I've run this 3-month campaign or 6-month campaign or whatever it is. Boy, I love your feedback.
It is a collaborative game, and that lets them know that, hey, both of us together on each side of the GM screen, we're moving in a common direction here about having fun. Yeah, do you want to go ahead and pull up the doc, and we'll go through maybe one of the pages here and talk about the key elements, and I'll just let you do your thing. And
you want to go through the like the definitions, like the first page? You want to go to the actual score sheet?
I would say go through the definitions first, okay. And then the score sheet actually, I mean, it's very important, but I think you can describe it actually after you talk about the definitions without even showing the 1 through 6 stuff. But if you want to, whatever you think is best. You probably had a couple of these talks by now.
Well, it's fine. No, I think
Wall Street Journal, Forbes, and others.
I think the definitions are important to that degree, just so that and when you hand it to players, give them the definitions too, so they know exactly what you're asking for. It's not just a random one, and then they'll say, well, what does this mean? Well, give them the definitions too, and that way they can see it and judge for themselves, what that means. So let me go ahead and...
But before we start that, you should go to DriveThruRPG, and you can find this tool. Paul, what does it cost for the tool?
It's pay what you want. Pay what you want.
People, go grab this on drive-thru, and then you can follow along in your own time. You can watch the video again, and you'll know what we're talking about. This is actually fairly easy. It looks like there's, a dozen factors that we're going to talk about. I'd say we just jump into them, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, there's 15 skills that I look at, and I'll start with this. First is rule knowledge.
That's true.
Right. What you're asking of yourself is, you say, look, rules knowledge. How familiar was I with the core rules? Did I know the majority of the rules I needed to know? And every adventure is different. There's some games where you say, hey, how many times have you gotten into a situation of, well, what do we do about grappling? How do we grapple? How do we ride a horse? How can I joust? Right. It's a good thing that we have the war horse scene written by the Erudite DM to show us, by the way, links below, to show us how to do that. But you have to be able to be aware of, do I know the rule knowledge, the core things, right? How do we roll the dice, and when do we do this, and when do we do that? Then you have rules consistency. Did I apply the rules the same way across sessions and players? You're not changing every time something happens. Okay. Time to dice. It's basically what was the average time it takes. Now, depending on the type of game you're playing, right? My idea is this, that I want to get the players around my table. I want to get them rolling dice as soon as possible, right? That they're actively engaged. Now, that doesn't mean combat. That could be skills. That could be any of the feats, could be whatever it is that they're trying to do. And I want to get them quickly into that. Otherwise, and by the way, role play. You know, it could be just
Oh, yeah.
time to role play versus time to dice. You could put that in there and say, hey, when do we start getting actively playing our characters? How long is it taking? Is it taking the DM too long? Are they doing a massive lore dump, right? Am I just dumping too much information on them, you know, before they get there? Character integration. I'm sorry, Mike, did you have a question?
I did on time to dice. Would this include asking that? I've seen people talk about this, and I tried it last week with the group, and I had them make the rolls.
Yeah.
I'd say so, and I don't mean just their own character roles, you know, for Wandering Monsters, whatever it was. I'd say, hey, give us a roll, even for weather when we were traveling part of the thing, and it just felt like they were having something to do and really on top of what I was saying and staying with me. So time to dice is critical. But maybe a nice twist is to actually include them in your DM roles when possible.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Anytime they're rolling dice, but they got these, you know, 6 dice in front of them, or 7 dice, and say, hey,
They like
when do I get to use these math rocks? You know, why am I boring you with, you know, stories and whatever? It's like, hey, let's get to dice here, right?
Absolutely.
Then you have character integration. How well did I weave my players into the story, right? And I'm not saying you have to use every backstory, like 20-page backstory of some character. A simple thing. If somebody, if their background is, I was once a, you know, a city guard. Well, maybe you can go talk to other city guards, right? You have the ability to do that. So you're using something background wise of the characters there and integrating it somehow into the story where it would make sense, right? NPC depth. This is where I, you know, my NPC depth is not great. It's usually I'd give myself a 2, because you know they're the expositioners many times, right? They're the guys that show up and say what's going on, and then they're gone. Scene. NPC exit stage.
Here's
Right?
your rumor. Here's your rumor. I'm
Here's
out.
the rumor. Here's you know, whatever it is. So you know, where my NPCs memorable, distinct, meaningful to the players, right? Combat pacing. Did I keep the battle moving without dragging or feeling rushed? Now, depending on the system you're playing, right, this is going to vary.
Oh yeah.
Some systems are very quick. Some systems are very crunchy, and you can spend an hour in a battle, but that's okay. The question is, you know, does a battle that should take 1 hour turn into 2 hours? And when do you say, okay, I should probably wrap this thing up, right? Like, okay, what is the best hit to end this on? Do I have to eliminate all the hit points of the monster for, you know, for this to be an effective thing? No, you can say, okay, fight's over. 30 minutes, boom, and we're done. 15 minutes, done. We're saying, look, that was epic. You chopped its head off and done.
You know who does that really well is Dan Masters, Professor DM.
Yeah.
He's really, I mean, I'm watching his stuff. I'm sure you have too for years. We all have. But yeah, he just moves them along and they make their roles, they make their decisions, but he'll really help push the players along so they're not sitting there dilly-dallying too long about what's my action, which one do I want to do, staring at my character sheet.
Exactly. And you're keeping things like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Right. You know, that you can say, hey, be ready. Right. That's part of saying, helping your players be ready.
That's got to be one of the toughest ones on your list here to manage, though, because you're waiting for them to shine and make a decision. Yeah. The spotlight's on them in the game for this, you know, brief period.
Yeah.
But trying to keep them moving is tough.
Yeah, I use a doom dice at my table. Like I'll get a big, like these, maybe you see these, there's these big dice behind me here.
Yeah.
I'll take a big dice and I'll say, you know, if things start to slow down, when this dice gets to 6, bad things happen. Like you're taking too much, you're taking too long to make decisions. And while you're thinking about your decisions, the monster's already made their decision. The character, whoever it is, this is about to amp up here. And whether that's the monster or whether that's the environment, maybe the lava is rising, maybe something enters in from outside of the thing to do something, you know, and I just, you know, find a way to keep things, you know, moving along if players are not, you know, paying attention, but things are going on. Another thing is narrative pacing, right? Did I avoid excessive downtime or exposition? Right, keeping the story's momentum going. Right, I almost derailed an entire adventure because I had built so much. and this is where we fall in love with homebrew or whatever we're doing, and we chase players over to the town we made because our town is so cool. They've got to go there. And, you know, and I almost derailed the whole thing because I thought, oh, I'm going to let them go, you know, if maybe they need to go shopping or whatever they're going to do. And I could tell that they did not want to go shopping. They wanted to get on with their game. So that's a big one for me that I did not, which comes up later too about reading the table, that I didn't keep the narrative going because I was so infatuated with what I wanted them to discover versus what they wanted to do. And then you have player spotlight. I'm sorry, you have scene transitions. You know, did I offer a smooth transition from scene to scene? Player spotlight balance. Did I help my players get moments of significance across the session? Not all of them are going to be equal, by the way. I think we've all discovered that. Not every player, every session now, a different person can get a little bit extra time, but not everybody gets the same amount. And I don't think it has to be fair. I think the conditions, right? The players playing their characters, those who step forward get spotlight. Those who hang in the back, you know, don't get as much spotlight, right? So we can help by inviting them into it, but you know, they have to make those decisions as well. Session flow. Did I effectively use our session time from intro to wrap up, right? How was the flow of the session? Player autonomy. Did I encourage player choice and react meaningful to their actions? Rather than, you know, just treating them like an NPC, like it didn't matter, right? Did their actions actually have some bite or teeth to it? Player engagement. Did I keep my players' attention and invested with, with low rates of distraction or disengagement? So the more people are looking at their phones, the more I need to pay attention because I want them engaged. So if I need to, when I was a substitute teacher, a lot of times what I would do if I felt like students were disengaged and I was, you know, teaching a lesson, I would walk over to the kid who was talking and I wouldn't have to say anything. I would just walk over there and I would stand right next to his desk and I would go ahead and do whatever. But then I would look at him and go, do you have any thoughts on this? And, you know, I wouldn't have to be corrective or anything like that. But I think what you do is say, hey, so-and-so's by, you know, naming them by character, you know, you're saying, hey, do you have any ideas about this? Right. Trying to keep the thing going. Group dynamics manager, right? How did I handle interplayer conflicts, spotlight hogging, or disengagement effectively, right? So some of these are combos of things. Some of them, you know, they're on their own, but some of them are linked to other skills. You're dealing with players who maybe don't like each other or characters who don't like each other, or they start PvP, you know, whatever it is.
In our group, it's Vance, right? Maybe Ken. These guys are spotlight hogs. They talk all the time.
Yeah.
You and I and Tim can barely get a word in.
Barely.
Just run with
right,
the stuff.
Right.
Poor Joe, the lawyer, couldn't even get a word in edgewise.
Poor guy.
He needs to learn to stand up for himself.
He does. He needs to take a course of, how to, make friends and influence people.
Hang in there, Joe.
Hang in there. But, you know, how did we deal with conflict at the table? I know not everybody's a great conflict manager per se, but once again, if you hand this to your players, they're going to let you know. That was a 2 or 5 or 6, and maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe there was none of that. So maybe you get a 6 by default because there was no conflict. So, you know, it didn't matter in that. And then you got reading the table, right? Did I need to adjust content or tone in response to player nonverbal play, people on phones, people tuning out, people having, the worst thing for me is people talking about an entirely different subject at the table. Like we're in the middle of a battle and they're talking, I'm trying to like rein them in and say, hey, whoa, over here, guys, right over here. Look at me. Right.
I play a 5e game that when I started getting back into it and when I first met you for family. So my nieces, they're sisters in their younger 30s, and they'll start singing show tunes and songs and making Shrek quotes and, half the stuff I don't even know what they're talking about, and they're very funny and they are having fun. We play once a month in their seats, so I can't really squash them too much. But it's hard.
Well, and that's once again goes back to what is fun at the table. If they think that's fun at the table, okay,
I'm pretty sure they think it's fun. I'm not sure one of them's husband and the boyfriend. They think it's that.
Well, and that once again, that's group dynamic management. That's group dynamic management, right? Who is not liking that and who is liking that, and not everybody's going to like the same things. And so you have to, ask yourself, am I, once again, if you're just judging yourself, how am I recognizing, being self-aware, right? That there's something going on at the table that maybe I need to talk to somebody about it, or maybe I don't. Maybe you just leave it alone and say, okay, it's fine. But the problem is too that some DMs get mad, right? And I'm not mad. I'm just like, okay, this is where this direction is going. Let's go. If they want to sing show tunes at the table, crazy. Let's go. Let's figure out how to. I'm thinking about how do I include that into the game somehow.
Well, that's kind of where I landed because again, I don't want to clamp down on them, and then it's not fun, and then they think I'm being a jerk. It's easier just to let them run with it. And it's like when they all get there, usually I'll cook a meal, I'll have gumbo or chili or something, they all eat. We're supposed to start at a certain time. Oh no, they always talk for 15-20 minutes extra. So you got to your point, you have to know your group, you have to know how they interact. Is it all in the name of good fun? And don't rock.
And if it's a one shot, who cares, right? You're not there to control the table. If it's a one shot and you're just doing it, they're going to behave however they're going to behave. They're going to do whatever they're going to do. If it's a campaign and the tone of your campaign, right? You do a session, you say, hey, these are kind of the expectations, this is what we're shooting for. Well, don't try to, if you know your players, don't play a really super serious political intrigue campaign if all your players want to do is go out and collect flumps and pets and don't do that to your players. The problem is that some of DMs love their stuff so much.
Oh yeah,
that they get mad when you don't interact with their stuff.
Yeah. Looking at your list, I can already tell my biggest problem is the lore dumps. I fall so in love with what I wrote up during the week.
Yeah.
And I waste their time until their eyes are rolling back in their head. I'm like, I should be taking the visual cues. But that's one thing that Shadow Dark's helped me with is brevity and everything. Keep it tight, keep it concise.
Right. And the last thing is post-session review. Did I take time to reflect and or solicit feedback from players after the session? And once again, you don't have to get player feedback. I find that a lot of DMs want player feedback. They want to be able to run a better game. They want to know, right? And I think we're all a little bit like that, right? We want validation. We want people to say we did a good job. And when people tell us that we did not do a very good job, we get some people who do not handle feedback well, throw dice across the room and take all their books and go home. So I think depending on the DM, post-session review, I think is first of all, personal. You take and assess your own time and say, how do I think I did? And go through the thing and say, and then, because if you can spot the things early for yourself, then what your players may say about, you'll go, oh, I get it. It's not a shock, right? Once you've discovered it for yourself, if the players tell you that, you go, okay, that's fair. That's a fair assessment there. But those are the 15 skills that you look at, that I created. And once again, people can agree or disagree with it or add their own or whatever they want to do is fine. And then, like I said, the score sheet, once they know what the definitions are of what I'm looking for from them when they take it, once they get the definitions, they just go to the next page and it's just 1 through 6. Tell me one. And by the way, 1 doesn't say bad, right? So when I go on the sheet there, it says circle a number for each DM skill. A 1 says I need improvement, right? It doesn't mean I'm bad. It means I need improvement. And a 6 says I did that pretty well. Total up the score at the bottom and see how you did on the next page, right? So that's the DM one. That's for yourself. And then like I said, I made another one for players. That's asking them about myself, right? So I put it in that vernacular, in that context.
So they're actually judging themselves on the same criteria.
Well, the players, I'm just changing the language. So if I'm saying it to myself, it says one thing, and then if I'm handing it out as a tool to a player, I am changing so that they're knowing how they're how they're helping me improve. Right. So the question just changes context.
And then you have a table here for scoring your results. At the highest level is legendary D. Oh, you want to start at the bottom maybe, and
Yeah, we can say that. If you
it
scored a
can improve and get better as you go. So
yeah,
if your score adds up to 15 to 35, which is the lowest, it needs support.
right. It's not saying you're bad. I think that's if I can
Sure.
drum
Yeah, yeah.
and beat that drum, just because you scored yourself, if you scored yourself that low, okay, I need improvement. That's fine. It's not, I need improvement. We all need improvement. Every DM can improve. Any DM says they cannot improve is I don't know, not self-aware. or they think they have just they have reached the top of the mountain and they no longer need to work on anything. So just know that if you get scored by players or score yourself, it just says need support. So what does that mean? Well, watch more videos, right? Watch more, listen to more podcasts, read more books, ask friends that are DMs. Hey, here's my situation. So you're just looking for ways to say, hey, how can I get better at the things that I do?
And then the next one's 36 to 47 points, and it's the rating is novice DM.
Yeah. Yeah, you're learning the ropes, right? It says interpretation is you're learning the ropes, expect some bumps, totally normal, right? This is normal when you're learning a new skill. You're not going to be great at it. Your first 3 games may be terrible, or 4 games, and then suddenly your 5th game is amazing, right? You're learning as you go.
You know
And then
what's funny is thinking, I'm sorry.
well, I was just going to say, I give next steps as well, right? So for
Yeah,
novice, I say embrace trial and error, run short sessions, ask for help, and take notes on what works.
good advice, solid advice. I was going to say that another thing I'm naturally thinking of is how good was I in 1980 when I was doing this with my friends? I know we were having fun, but sometimes we were bored and it was dry as dirt and I wasn't prepared. A lot of other things. They didn't know this. I didn't
I
know.
didn't know any rules. I was like,
Yeah.
rules?
You hear that
What is
again and
that?
again, though. Some guys didn't even have the rule book. They'd played with somebody else and just started playing it. And
Yeah.
they were having fun. Then we go to levels 48 through 59 on the total score, which is a developing DM. This could get serious.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And the interpretation is you've got the foundation, but challenges are affecting game quality, right? So you're developing, you're getting there, but there are a few things in there you can work on. And then your next steps are choose 2 to 3 focus areas, solicit honest player feedback, or co-DM to grow faster, right? So you want to just find the things you're starting to hone in on the specific things that tend to get away from you at the table.
Yeah. So you're finding the problems and picking and working on them. 60 to 71 total score is a reliable DM.
Yeah, and the interpretation is there. You're solid. Your games likely run well, but some parts may need sharpening, right? And then your next steps is review your lowest scoring traits. Try a new tool, rule variant, or pacing approach. So now you're pivoting, right? You're just saying, hey, if I keep trying to, fit the square peg in the round hole, maybe I need some new tools. Maybe I'm just trying to force something that doesn't need to be forced in a particular area, and I need to be more open to a tool or a process at the table that I need to just lean into a little bit more.
Yeah. And now we're getting to the top of the talent pool, I guess.
Yeah, well,
That's a 72 to 81. That's a veteran DM.
that's right. Interpretation is you're consistent, creative, and players are engaged. A few tweaks can elevate your table even more. And the next steps would be focus on polishing your lowest 1 to 2 categories or experimenting with new techniques. Now, I would also say this, you can, the thing is sometimes we look at our worst things, we look at our worst traits, and we got to get better at all those. Well, you don't have to get better at everything. Some things you're really good at, and you're always going to be good at those. You're always going to be good at group management. You're always going to be good at, reading the table. You're always, depending on your personality, depending on your own personal, skill levels, whatever it is your background is, or your job, or whatever that is. And you know what? Sometimes you have to let things go and just say, you know what? I don't think I'm ever going to be great at NPC depth. I may never be good at that. Maybe I'm not going to work on that. Maybe I'm just like, you know what? That's, maybe somebody else is in charge of that. Maybe I hand that off to somebody at the table. maybe you get help. It's a collaborative, like we said earlier, it's a collaborative experience. You could have a co-DM at the table that's what they do. They run the NPCs because they have a real passion for that.
Yeah, it seems intuitive, but I think it's really not just knowing what your weaknesses are, but identifying them and then attacking them instead of trying to be better at everything. That's just too much at one time. You're better picking those things that you're rated worst at and try to improve those, and that'll bring up the overall experience. And then, gold star here, ding, 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 winner, winner at the top is 82 to 90 score, a legendary DM.
Yeah, interpretation. You're at the top of your game. Players are likely talking about your sessions long after they end. Maybe. And then your next steps is consider sharing your techniques, coaching others, or running high-profile games. Well, sure, you could do that. I think and once again, I would not score one game and say, oh, I'm legendary after one game. Right? If you're not, let's talk about scoring consistently in various venues, right? If you're scoring yourself, right? And these are to some degree, they're arbitrary, right? These are just names, titles. They're not like they mean anything in the real world.
Is there a Flint Fire Forge school or a shop where we can go and get a ratings on our shirts or trophies?
Well, I don't know if you want the ratings on your shirt. I don't know if you want the ratings on your shirt. Right,
ribbon and a medal. I'm a veteran DM. I scored a 7.
Yes, I am legendary.
Put the number on the medal.
Yes, you can come to Flint Fire Forge's School of DMing. It's open up right now. Hey, there are people out there who do it, and I don't mind coaching people to say, hey, I'll help you if you need some help, but you don't need some guy on a screen to do that. You have real life people who can help you do that. You can go to your local game store and find tons of people who can help you do that, who will be more than happy to assist you in doing that. And, my tool, like I said, is just that. It's a tool of improvement, not a statement of judgment on whether you're good or bad as a DM. If you come from the premise that I always need to improve, then guess what? Then whether you are need support or legendary DM, the legendary DM needs to improve just as much as the need support person, right? You're always improving, and whether that's improving in the skill or you're using various tools or things at the table that help and assist that, or whether you are finding collaborators or co-DMs that are helping you facilitate this. I just think sometimes we treat DMing as such a soul endeavor that all the pressure and everything is upon your shoulders, and we judge ourselves so harshly by it that hopefully what the diagnostic at least does is say, you know what, doesn't matter whether you're this level or this level, you're always trying to get 1% better in a particular way that you're running a game, and not every game is going to go perfect, and not every game should go perfect. I mean, perfect designed in your own mind of and once again, if everybody had fun, guess what? You could be a legendary DM and not be really good at any of these things, maybe, And if the people had fun, there we go. Winner right there. You have won the day with just the people having fun. And can I say this too? A lot of your players may not even care about this. They may not. Once again, it's a tool to help yourself. Your players may not care about all the mechanics of what it means to be a DM. Although, if there's somebody around your table who wants to DM, what a great tool to give them and say, hey, here's the 15 things that I think, that this guy, Paul, thinks is important to being a DM. And I'll add a few others, they say, right? Look at it for yourself. Maybe that's something you can follow as a pattern to work on some things in your own DMing.
Well, I remember at Dallas when we were there a couple of weeks back, a lot of people were talking about it. Certainly the Second Watch guys and some of the other groups we were hanging out with later in the evenings after most of the games were done, and it was getting discussed. So I think we're going to see more and more of it, and hopefully it becomes a rather common dynamic. I know you don't have, I don't think, we didn't talk about this, but I'd love to put this on a phone app. Not me, but somebody who knows how to do that, right?
Sure.
And you type in the GM's email address, and then you go through the little chart, and you fill it, and you rate them, boom, 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 boom. little box for any other comments, then boop, submit, and they get a rating sent to them. Something like that would be really cool.
Well, and I think, some cons have that. Some cons have a
We'll start
rating.
playing.
They're right. You can do that on Start Playing, right? You immediately can judge and you say judge, right? But like on mine, you will see it will list on my profile, which there'll probably be a link down below to that if you're interested in just looking at my profile, what other people say about the games that I've run online. And I've not run a ton online, but I've run enough to where you can say, oh, the DM's good at storytelling or explaining the rules or working with new players, and so, or creativity. And so when you look at that and say, okay, but I think it also works in real time, not only on Start Playing where you can, rate the DM that you had, but I think it would do well for cons, and some cons have them where you could hand them to your players and say, because if you keep inviting DMs back that are not seeking improvement, I think that hurts your overall con in some way, because now they're signed up for games that, as if you're maybe an organizer, or you just know that maybe these guys they're not giving their best. They're halfway in it in some ways. And, it gives and by the way, there are some players who will be happy to voice in an email to con organizers and say, hey, this guy was awful. This guy was terrible. Don't have this guy back. Right. So if you like to run games at cons and things, I say get ahead of the game and say, hey, how can I get better at this thing? How can I get at least 1% better in some of these areas? And I think the diagnostic can help you improve. That's the whole point of it.
Yeah, and it's all the frame of mind, right? It's not a punitive thing in any way. I mean, that would be silly. But it's more of a spirit of the game thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
For the time we invest in all this. I want to say thanks again, Paul. That kind of wraps us up, I guess, unless you have some closing things, anything else you didn't say that you wanted to. But thanks a million for doing this and helping me with my channel and get some great content on here that people care about, because I feel like half the people we run into on YouTube are new DMs, new GMs who want to learn more. And the other half are old DMs, GMs who are just, ripping off stuff from the other guys, or or looking for something fun in their game, or looking for a new game or something. But I don't know. I guess I'm sure there are pure players on here that watch this stuff, but everybody's got some GM DNA.
And I hope that if you're watching this and you're brand new to DMing or GMing and running games, once again, I hope that the things that I've shared with you is all about improvement. It's not about saying you're bad or good. It's saying I need improvement. I need help. Everybody needs improvement when they're running a game, because it helps us just get better. And if you have a desire to get better, my hope would be that the diagnostic, will help you do that. That's the whole point.
And you can start improving yourselves right now by going to the show notes and seeing the links that are there to Paul's channel. Again, he's Flint Fireforge. If you watch some of the live streams around, you'll see probably both of us sometimes in the comments and things, say hey, say hi. Paul and I both love the community and the interaction with all you guys. And I say guys and gals
and girls, the whole bunch.
Absolutely, who play RPGs. So look for us, but look in the show notes and everything you need to go get this. Don't wait, just go download it right now, and you will be very happy you did. So look for us next time. Do please like, subscribe, and add your comments and questions here, or jump on one of Paul's videos and go subscribe to his channel, and ask him questions there. Paul, is there an email? Do you put it out, a general email where they can send questions, or no?
I mean, they can leave questions down in the comments.
Comments are fine.
Leave your questions down there. And by the way, there's information to get in touch with me when you buy the zine. There's information in the back. Once again, it's pay what you want, so it's free, and then it gives you more information, and then gives you some more information about some of the other products and resources that I do, such as my Crit Happen zine.
Excellent. Thanks again. Go do it. And thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys in the next video.